I want to give a special shout out to all my patrons first. Thank you so much to my Bibliospren, Bibliohowlers, and my Bibliomancers. It means a lot to me that you give me your extra support for my passion and hobby. Hi everyone, Petrik here. Today's video is a bit late because today I will be talking about the books that I managed to finish in the month of October. But well, suffice to say that this is by far the most productive reading month that I ever had, not only within this year, but since I started my Booktube channel. Yeah, no kidding, because in the month of October, I managed to finish 10 novels and 10 volumes of manga. This is on top of creating videos and also writing book reviews. So yeah, I do not think I can actually replicate this kind of productivity for the rest of this year, but I will try my best. And this is kind of odd because before I started my Booktube channel, reading 10 books per month is actually the standard for me, but now it's close to impossible. And I'm really glad that I managed to did that in the month of October. Hopefully I can do that again within this month. So yeah, I will start immediately. The first book that I managed to finish in the month of October, it was Talonsister by Jen Williams. So this is the newest fantasy book by Jen Williams, one of my most anticipated book of this year. I started reading Talonsister, I think, at the end of the month of September, and I only managed to finish it in October. And well, I still liked it. I gave this one, I think, a 3.5 stars, but honestly, the first half of this one was a huge struggle for me. I mean, there were several points in that book where I actually almost want to DNF Talonsister, which is a surprise because, well, the Winnowing Flame trilogy is one of my favorite trilogies, and I have talked about that trilogy very highly on my YouTube channel many times. I don't know how many times now, but yeah, many times. So because of that, I was so eager to read Talonsister. But the first half of Talonsister, even though this is a very character-driven narrative, but the first half of this one felt really, well, it felt like there was no destination. It really felt like the characters were just wandering around in the jungle, exploring the world and the lore of the book. And this is the first book in the Talon duology. But the second half thankfully managed to ramp up everything, and basically what I wanted from Jen Williams' books was achieved in the second half of Talonsister. And if you want to read this one, this is a fantasy book filled with griffins, many creatures in the history of the world, and also well-realized characters. I do like the characters. It's just, I think, with Jen Williams' simplistic prose, I do think that even though the characterizations were well written, we still need more destination. We need more main mission. And well, as I said, for the first half of this book, it felt like the characters were just wandering around doing basically nothing important. And yeah, so if you're going to read Talonsister, I do recommend you to be patient, reading the first probably 60%, which is quite a lot because, well, Talonsister, I think, is almost 600 pages long. And I am actually mentioned in the acknowledgement. So believe me, even though I'm giving this one a 3.5 stars rating, which is still a good rating, I wish I can give it more. But I have to be honest, the first half of this one was really a big struggle. And yeah, it has a big payoff, really big payoff, which makes me excited to read the sequel as soon as possible. But the sequel is not here yet. But if you're someone who loves medieval Britain, because believe me, this book is definitely inspired by medieval Britain. I mean, just take a look at the map. This is basically England. And the name of the places like Worcestershire and Londus, well, that's London. One of my dream destination, and hopefully I can, well, go to London and UK someday. But back to the point, if you love that kind of world building, I think you will find plenty of fascinating world building to encounter in Talonsister, and hopefully that will be enough for you to feel interested and compelled enough to continue until you reach the second half of Talonsister. Now I just wish and hope the second book, when it comes out, will have a detailed summary, because I do not think I can do a second read of Talonsister. Not because I don't want to, because I believe now I feel attached to the characters, and I think the first half on second read will improve so much more. But it all depends on my reading mood and also my hectic reading schedule. And the second book that I finished last month, it was Starsight by Sanderson. This is the second book in the Skyward Quartet. And this was surprisingly better than Skyward, the first book, in my opinion. I know that many people felt a bit mixed about this one. Not as mixed as they felt about Cytonic, which is the third novel in the Skyward, which I will read this month. But I have seen many people saying that they like Skyward more because Spencer in this book doesn't spend a lot of time with the crew of Skyward Flight. In Starsight, I think though, everything about the world building and the complexity of the series actually improved. It never felt too complex because at the end of the day, Starsight is still marketed as YA sci-fi novel in the US, but somehow this is marketed as adult in the UK. Yeah, I don't know why. I just find out about that from plenty of readers who told me. But yeah, that's really the case. But in Starsight, what I love most about this, I think the new crew, the new group of people that Spencer met actually felt fun as well. And I felt connected to each and every one of them. It also felt good to learn more about the other species. And well, I must say, it was really fun to see Spencer trying her best to become a spy. I mean, Spencer is really, well, she's kind of rude and foul-mouthed, and it was interesting and fun to actually see her try to become a spy, hide her identity and all that. But if you want a sequel, a fast-paced sequel that improves upon everything, I think Starsight is a really good example. And just like Skyward, is another great example of a YA sci-fi novel done right, if it's marketed as YA anyway. And the ending, there is something about this ending that felt really weird to me. It's not too much of a big deal, but I just felt it's super unnecessary. It's something to do with the epilogue chapter. I do not want to spoil that, but I just felt it was so unnecessary. It doesn't give me anything, it only made me felt confused. And I heard some readers actually felt that it was so brilliant that Sanderson did that. I do not think so. Not gonna lie, I actually find it kind of cringe, especially considering its main purpose. But you know what, that is not a big deal. The main content of Starsight is still incredible. The actions were really good. Love the space opera battle, and also, as I said, the expansion of the world building and the lore. And I know that many people have told me that if I have read Cytonic, I will enjoy the prequel novella Defending Elysium even more. And yeah, Defending Elysium is one of my most disappointing novella of the year so far, and I'm still not sure whether I will do that, whether I will read that again after I finish Cytonic, but I guess we will find out, because right now, at the time of recording this video, I'm in the middle of reading Skyward Flight. Slowly anyway. And I look forward to reading Skyward to the end of the series within this year. Defiant will be released within this month, after all. The third novel that I finished last month, it was Bookshops and Bonedust by Travis Baldree. This is another cozy fantasy by Travis Baldree, and yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I think as far as cozy fantasy goes, I think Travis Baldree really nailed the formula wonderfully. Really liked Bookshops and Bonedust, but if I have to choose, I love Legends and Lattes even more. Bookshops and Bonedust is a prequel novel to Legends and Lattes. You know what will happen to the main character, Viv. But at the same time, because of this, and somehow Bookshops and Bonedust actually features more actions, so much more actions relatively compared to Legends and Lattes, I think the actions became the weakest moment of the entire book, which is unfortunate because I do really like seeing Viv interact in the new Bookshops with the two new main characters in this cover art. Now, it can be argued that you might feel better about Bookshops and Bonedust if you haven't read Legends and Lattes, but it's not really technically true as well, because the ending, the final chapter, will only become something really good if you have read Legends and Lattes. So yeah, it is kinda like a conundrum, but this is definitely, as far as plotline goes, this is definitely a standalone prequel novel to Legends and Lattes. It is also a story about meeting the right person at the wrong moment, which sounds kind of sad, but it is true. I think Bookshops and Bonedust will be released this month as well, and I'm curious to find out whether many readers will enjoy this as much as Legends and Lattes or not. I think early reception kind of agree that most actually love Legends and Lattes more, and I am certainly one of them. But as far as Legends and Lattes and also Bookshops and Bonedust, I think both of them are great cozy fantasy. And moving on to the next one, this is a short novel, The Lesser Devil by Christopher Ruocchio. This is the first novella. Well, I can't call this a novella because this actually has more than 50,000 words long, and that already can be categorized as short novel. So I'm going to call this just a novel. The Lesser Devil is the first spin-off novel in the Sun Eater series, and it takes place basically around the same time during the events in Empire of Silence. But The Lesser Devil features not Hadrian, but Hadrian's brother, Crispin Marlowe. And in The Lesser Devil, religion and faith is one of the biggest main themes of the novel. And well, I still liked it. I must say though, reading this actually made me felt even more, let's just say that I want to read Hadrian's story even more, because Crispin is great. It's great to finally understand Crispin even more, because in the eyes of Hadrian, he's just a brute, violent, but there is more to Crispin, and you can find out about that in The Lesser Devil. But this one, I should let you know first, if this is the first time you're reading The Sun Eater, and if you are starting from The Lesser Devil, do know that this is not representative of the quality and the storytelling style in the main novels, because this one is so much more action-packed compared to the main novels in The Sun Eater. I mean, The Lesser Devil, even though this is so much more shorter compared to Empire of Silence, like 5 times shorter, but it has more action scenes and battle scenes, detailed battle scenes compared to the entire Empire of Silence. So I think that should give you an idea just how action-packed this short novel is. And I personally think that it was a bit too long because of that, but at the end of the day, I think this is still a good short novel. And if you're a fan of the Sun Eater series, you cannot go wrong with reading The Lesser Devil to find out more about the world and also to understand Crispin and the Marlowe's family even more. For the next novel, I'm going to try to be brief about it because, well, when I entered this book, well, I entered it with as little knowledge as possible, and I think that is the best way to enter The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. And yeah, really love this standalone sci-fi novel. Surprisingly, I had no expectations regarding this book. All I know is that if you click with Simon Jimenez's writing style, you will love it very much. And yes, I did. Right from the first chapter, it has one of the most incredible and poignant first chapter that I have ever read. It basically worked like a really good short story. And you know, I'm not saying this lightly. I think reading Simon Jimenez's writing style, it felt reminiscent of Ken Liu's writing style. And yeah, I know what I said. I'm not saying that lightly, because Ken Liu is one of the best, maybe even the best when it comes to technicality in writing. Well, for me, in fantasy and sci-fi, The Dandelion Dynasty is still one of my top favorite series of all time, and I highly recommend you to read that if you haven't. And well, I do not want to make this book review on The Vanished Birds become an advertisement for The Dandelion Dynasty, but yes, you must do that. But for The Vanished Birds, I really loved reading this one. This actually spanned a lot of years, and also, to put it simply, The Vanished Birds is a story about love and also found family. Very much about those two, and also about technology and what human will do to achieve technology. How much human will sacrifice to achieve progress. And The Vanished Birds is basically everything that I wanted from The Wayfarers by Becky Chambers. I have basically given up on Wayfarers by Becky Chambers. I forgot the name, the long and something to an angry planet, but yeah, really not a fan of that book. I tried reading it 3 times and I always end up DNFing it. The Vanished Birds is filled with that found family trope that is very prevalent in Becky Chambers' novels, but this one still has the intensity that I want to make me feel even more invested in the crew, in the motley crew. All I can say is that if you want to try reading The Vanished Birds, try reading the first chapter and see how you feel about it. Do note though that this one, even though it's, I think, 400 pages long or less than 400 pages long, it has a long chapter. I think the entire book is told within 10 or 11 chapters. But yeah, it is quite demanding of your time, even though I did not feel it. But if you are in a hurry and you are someone like me who must finish a chapter before you do something else, then make sure to spare some time before you dive into The Vanished Birds. I highly recommend this though, easily one of the best standalone novels that I have ever read. And I heard A Spear Cuts Through Water is even more amazing, and I will read that within next year. And I want to say thank you so much to Evie, a fellow booktuber, who gave me a copy of The Vanished Birds and also Spear Cuts Through Water. It was incredible. Loved this one very much. And then the 6th novel I finished last month. Again, this is just like Talonsister. It is one of the most disappointing book of the year for me, but I still gave it a good rating, but I expected so much more. And I'm talking about The Sunlit Man by Brandon Sanderson. And I think this can be considered an unpopular opinion, but at this moment, The Sunlit Man is my least favorite Cosmere novel so far. And I've talked about this in length in my video review of The Sunlit Man, but to put it simply, I think this one just required too many details from a book that hasn't existed yet. Whether it's the Stormlight Archive Book 5 or maybe more books in the Cosmere, I think we need to read them all first before we can actually reap the maximum emotional impact from the Sunlit Man. Because the main character here, and yes, this is definitely not a standalone novel. If you haven't read the Sunlit Man yet, you haven't read any books in the Stormlight Archive, do not read the Sunlit Man. At the very least, you need to read all books in the Stormlight Archive, in my opinion, and that includes the novellas H Dancer and also Don't Shut. Well, maybe not H Dancer, but definitely Don't Shut. You must read them first before you read the Sunlit Man. The main character here, Nomad, is a supporting character that has appeared in Stormlight Archive since Book 1, The Way of Kings. That's all I will say without spoilers. But in the Stormlight Archive, he's not such a big supporting characters yet, not compared to the other characters anyway. And in the Sunlit Man, I feel that he's still missing all those core development, all those details to make him completely engaging and also to make his big moments felt even more emotional, because there were some very cool stuff going on in the Sunlit Man, especially near the end of the book. And I did felt a bit emotional, but at the same time, usually when it comes to reading Brandon Sanderson's books in the Cosmere, especially in the Stormlight Archive, this kind of pivotal and emotional moments can actually make my heart skip a beat. But this one, it's just, wow, this is really cool, and then I move on to the next page immediately. And that's precisely because I haven't read all the stuff that is required and talked about by Nomad in this book. Some people have argued that you can just imagine it, and you know, that's really not the case. It's like Brandon Sanderson told me that you have to feel sad about this, you have to feel emotional about this guy, even though you haven't really know the details of what's happened, and that just doesn't work. On the plus side, I do think that on reread someday, this one will be amazing. After I read all the missing books, all the unwritten books, I think the Sunlit Man will become something incredible, as it has shown glimpses of what will happen in the future of Cosmere. The Sunlit Man, I think, takes place at least 20 years after the end of Stormlight Archive Book 5. So yeah, it is very far in the future, and it contains so many Cosmere stuff. It is basically like Lost Metal, but even more, in my opinion. And Sanderson really did not take some time to explain any of them. Any of the Cosmere terminologies, none of them were explained. And lastly, I must say, I despise physics, okay? Physics is my worst lesson in high school. It is the worst lesson that I have encountered. I'm just not pleased with it, and this one contained a lot of physics stuff. And Sanderson actually admitted that he actually hired an expert on physics to write this book as well. So yeah, and I know this is an unpopular opinion, but if you love this book, no worries about it. As I said, I think I'm one of the few who really felt disappointed with this one. I still gave it, I think, 3 stars, and I gave it 3.5 stars because of the beautiful colored artworks and also design of the Sunlit Man. And yet the artwork definitely elevated my experience of the Secret Project novel, and I still felt satisfied that I pledged myself to the 4 Secret Project novels by Brandon Sanderson. And moving on to the next one, this is something truly incredible, and you might have seen my video review on this, and I'm talking about Howling Dark by Christopher Ruocchio, the second book in the Sun Eater series. If you want to know my full thoughts regarding the Sun Eater, make sure to check out my video reviews on my YouTube channel. But Howling Dark, against my apprehension, somehow managed to surpass Empire of Silence. Many of you were right about this. I mean, I already love Empire of Silence very much. I think as far as first book of a series goes, especially a 7 books epic space opera series, that one was absolutely incredible. And when I heard constantly that Howling Dark and also Demon in White is even better, I was slightly skeptical, not gonna lie. Excited and also skeptical. And yes, in reality, Howling Dark is definitely superior compared to Empire of Silence. The ending was just absolutely phenomenal, and well, after you manage to pass the first 100 pages of Howling Dark, and oh yeah, by the way, I should mention that this one actually starts after like multiple decades after the end of Empire of Silence, and yeah, it can take some time for you to get used to the author or Hadrian Marlowe feeling all the details on what happened within that time gap, and it can take about probably 100 pages for you to get used to that. At least it did for me. But once you got used to that and Hadrian has arrived at the planet of his destination, everything just became something truly amazing from that on. This one has more horror elements, it is more bizarre, but the usage of visions and prophecies in this book, it was just spectacular. Really love this very much, and I do not want to spoil this, but let's just say that how Hadrian Marlowe achieved one of the many titles that he has attained throughout his lifetime, specifically the Half Mortal. It was just so epic. Loved it very much, and as I said, I give this one a 5 out of 5 stars. Again, just like Empire of Silence, another 5 out of 5 stars. And if you love epic space opera series, make sure to read this series. It is amazing. I waited way too long to start reading The Sun Eater, but hey, as I said, it's always better to read something late than never. And this one is something that you definitely should read if you love epic space opera series. And right after I finished Howling Dark, I remember that I knew I would need something completely different, not fantasy, not sci-fi. So I read Boys in the Valley by Philip Fracassi. And yeah, this is a horror novel. I read probably 1 or 2 horror novels every year. And for this year, I have decided to read Boys in the Valley. And well, many people have pitched this as The Exorcist meets Lords of the Fly. And also the TV show Midnight Mass by, Mike Flanagan, and I think those are a really fair comparison. And yeah, that's really all I can say without too much spoiler here. But what I love most about Boys in the Valley is how the author managed to keep up the tension throughout the novel, especially once you reach about 100 pages long. And this is a short novel. It's about 90,000 words long and also less than 400 pages. The efficiency that the author employs in writing the characters is really incredible. I felt really attached to the characters quicker than I expected. And yeah, this is a battle between light and darkness, and Boys in the Valley is certainly filled with dread and hope in equal measure. If you like horror, if you like reading a standalone novel, heck, if you don't like horror, I think this is still something that you should try reading. It is wonderful. We still have 2 more novels to talk about, and the next one is again something that I really love because this is The Silverblood Promise by James Logan. I just posted a review of this one, and The Silverblood Promise was my book of the month, my Patreon's book of the month for the month of October. And it's only a few days ago that I managed to actually post a review of the book, and I'm really glad that this became my Patreon's pick for book of the month, because this, although it's still probably about 5 months before this book is published, this has the biggest potential to become one of the best fantasy debut of 2024. And yeah, just like Howling Dark, I have posted a full review of this one, spoiler-free review, so if you want to know more about it, then you feel free to check that out. But if you love books like The Lies of Locke Lamora or by Scott Lynch, or Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett, with a touch of Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and also a more hopeful version of Joe Abercrombie's First Law, then you cannot go wrong with reading The Silverblood Promise. And rest assured, this one, it is still distinct, fun, and incredibly entertaining, engrossing. If the author's mission in writing The Silverblood Promise is to create something compelling while keeping the world greedy but hopeful, then I believe the author has succeeded in this, because The Silverblood Promise is not actually a mind-blowing or explosive read, but throughout the entire novel, it just felt so fun to read somehow for me. It exhibited a greedy world with a very hopeful and optimistic main characters. Found family and the badass and the child trope has been utilized wonderfully in The Silverblood Promise by the author, and yeah, this one actually works really well as a standalone, just like The Lies of Locke Lamora or Mistborn: The Final Empire. So if you have read this one, you will feel satisfied by the end of it. But this murder mystery in an epic fantasy setting is the first book, I think, in a trilogy titled The Last Legacy, and yeah, the main plotline and the main overarching story is definitely not over yet. And I look forward to reading the second book as soon as I can. The first book takes place almost the entirety of the book takes place in the city of Safrona, and I think the second book and beyond will take place on a different city. Basically just like the Divine City trilogy by Robert Jackson Bennett, or The Gentleman Bastards by Scott Lynch. There are plenty of fantasy debuts I look forward to reading in the year 2024, and I'm glad that I managed to read one of them this early. And I look forward to finding out how people will actually perceive this book. Hopefully, many people will have a great time reading The Silverblood Promise as much as I did. I think it was such a fun book. And finally, the last novel that I finished last month, it was a reread, probably my last reread of this year, probably. And this is The Mirror's Truth by Michael Fletcher, the second book in the Manifest the Legion series. And well, as I said, this is one of my favorite grimdark novels, and I did the second read, and for a while, not gonna lie, I was kind of thinking that, wow, the first half actually felt slower than I thought. I remember reading this book for the first time in 2017 and felt very compelled throughout the entire novel. But in this one, I did felt a bit of a slowdown because I already knew what will happen. Somehow, my memory of The Mirror's Truth is more clear compared to my memory of Beyond Redemption, even though I read both of them in the same year, in 2017. And it has been 6 years since I read Beyond Redemption and The Mirror's Truth. But I really like this one. I just remembered that by the end of The Mirror's Truth, this is a slow burn reaching toward a very explosive and insane conclusion. It is filthy, filled with rots, and well, it's grimdark to the max, really. It is definitely a grimdark fantasy novel, and I cannot recommend this to anyone who doesn't like reading grimdark. I did a second read of The Mirror's Truth in order for me to read A War to End All, the long-awaited third and final book in the Manifest Delusion series by Michael Fletcher, co-written with Clayton Schneider. And now that I'm done doing my reread of Beyond Redemption and also The Mirror's Truth, I look forward to reading A War to End All this month. Now, my dilemma is that I have no idea whether I should do a second read of the standalone spin-off novel to the Manifest Delusion first or not, titled Swarm and Steel. Yeah, I'm not sure whether I should read that first or not, but if I end up doing a second read of Swarm and Steel, then A War to End All will have to move to December, and I have no idea whether that will happen or not. I guess we'll find out. But for those of you who don't know, the Manifest Delusion series takes place in a world where belief defines reality. This is where delusions are both strength and curse. And yeah, that is not a lie. That is definitely the case with Manifest Delusion series by Michael Fletcher. So that's all the novels. I know, that's a lot, right? 10 books. And yeah, this is probably the longest wrap-up video in the entire history of my YouTube channel. And I'm still not done yet, because now I'm going to talk about manga and manhwa. And for manga and manhwa, I managed to read 10 volumes. And the first 5 volumes is actually for Black Clover. So I have heard plenty of mixed things about Black Clover by Yuki Tabata, and because I cannot make up my mind, I have finally decided to just read it and find out for myself. And this time I managed to read 5 volumes, and I believe I will actually continue reading the manga. This is definitely a shonen manga, standard shonen manga, but I think it's still well executed, even though it felt really similar to, like, let's say Naruto. Okay, Naruto by Masashi Kishimoto is a great example of the kind of story you will get in Black Clover, but in a different setting. It's not ninja. It's definitely not ninja at all. But the tropes being used in Black Clover, so far anyway, is something super similar to the ones used in the early volumes of Naruto. And well, I'm still kind of excited to find out how everything will proceed from here, but I think this one, as far as first 5 volume goes, I think it is much better compared to the anime. I actually tried watching the anime and I cannot stand it. The seiyuu, or the Japanese voice actor of Asta, the main character, drive me nuts. His voice was just insane. My ear cannot stand his voice. Just too much screaming, and it actually screech. Yeah, let's just say that I'm not a fan of the voice acting of the main character Asta in the anime adaptation. Reading the manga volume actually nullified that, and I'm kind of excited to find out what will happen next in the 6th volume and beyond. And other than Black Clover, the other manga that I managed to read, it was basically the first volume of Attack on Titan by Hajime Isayama. After 10 years, the anime has finally ended. And yeah, I think it is time to experience the story from the beginning again. That's all I will say about this one. This is one of my favorite series, whether it's manga or anime. I do love the anime more. I think this is one of the best story ever told in the history of storytelling across all medium. And I actually disagree regarding the ending. The ending, in my opinion, is not as bad as some people perceive it to be. It was okay. Not amazing, but it was okay in my opinion. I was actually surprised to find out how many people dislike the ending of Attack on Titan. And when I find out about the alternative ending they conceived, it was even worse. And you know, this just goes to show that authors and also storytellers sometimes should not listen to readers. Sometimes we felt disappointed but cannot come up with a better ending. Not always, because I do believe some readers and also reviewers can actually come up with a better ending to a series series, but that's only because they have read, not written, the entire book or the entire series, remember. Oh, my bad, I actually read 2 volumes of Attack on Titan at the end of October. And that's for the manga that I read. Now it's time to talk about manhwa. And for manhwa, I finally continued reading The World After the Fall by Undead Gamja, the second and the third volume. And as I said in my mini review of the first volume, I think this series has potential. And yeah, the main characters is incredibly overpowered. And it actually kind of reminded me of Solo Leveling, but in this book, in this series, the overpowered situation actually happened quicker than I thought. But the drawing, the illustrations, the actions, everything is top-notch, and I definitely will continue because in the third volume, I finally get the intensity that I want from this series. I think when the main character, after being that insanely powerful, finally encountered someone as powerful as him, or maybe even more powerful than him, that's when the series became something even more engaging for me. And yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, The World After the Fall actually takes place in the same world as Omniscient Reader. That's another different manhwa series that I'm reading as well. But yeah, if I'm not mistaken, this one actually takes place in the same world as that. I still haven't found the connection yet, but I look forward to finding out how this one will connect to that series. And book number 3, volume number 3 actually ended on an insane cliffhanger, and I cannot believe that I don't have the 4th volume to read yet. And finally, we have arrived at the last manhwa and the last book I will talk about today, and this is Jungle Juice. Yeah, I haven't read Jungle Juice yet prior to October, and this was sent to me by the publisher, Isayama Press. Isayama Press pitched this to me as My Hero Academia, but the power involved bugs. Now, I'm not a fan of bugs, but because this is pitched as My Hero Academia, which is one of my favorite manga series, of course I will have to accept this review request. And I am certainly not disappointed. So for this one, this is about prey versus predator. Every society has its hierarchy, and college student Su Chan-jang is at the top of the human one. But despite his popularity and charisma, he has a secret that keeps him from getting close with others. Under his clothes lies a pair of dragonfly wings. So yeah, the main character channeled the ability of dragonfly, and soon he will find out that he is shunned by many normal citizens because of his power. And yeah, there is more to this one, and let's just say that this is very interesting, and the illustrations is beautiful. The illustration is done by Juder, and the story is done by Hyeong. Really like the artwork inside this one. And you know, just like The World After the Fall, this actually ended on a massive cliffhanger as well, and I'm gonna need the second volume as soon as I can. But as far as first volume goes, this is incredible. Definitely has a lot of potential to become one of my favorite manhwa. It all depends on the next few volumes. And yeah, I definitely will continue reading Jungle Juice. And if you like reading My Hero Academia but with power of bugs, try reading Jungle Juice. I think this has a lot of potential to become something incredible. And yeah, thank you so much to Isayama Press for sending me a copy of this manhwa, and also The World After the Fall. So yeah, that's about it. That's the 10 novels and also the 10 manga and manhwa that I finished in the month of October. By far, as I said, the most productive reading month for me. So what's my favorite book of the month? Easy. It is Howling Dark by Christopher Ruocchio. I cannot choose any other book. This one definitely won the book of the month, just like Empire of Silence did. And if Demon in White actually became something actually better compared to Howling Dark, then well, Demon in White will become my book of the month in November as well. And I look forward to finding out whether that will come true or not. So yeah, that's about it for me. That's all the books and manga that I managed to finish in the month of October. And do let me know what you think about my reading month, and what's your favorite book of the month in the month of October. As always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support. Bye bye. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much once again to all my patrons who keep on supporting me.